Hi, I'm Harry Fisher, Ecological Consultant with SAC Consulting, and today we're at Craigengillan Estate with Mark Gibson talking about natural capital markets, established and emerging. The term natural capital is one that's gained a lot of buzz with farmers and landowners recently, and this is because natural capital looks to place value on pieces of land that otherwise were overlooked because they maybe didn't produce as high economic output, such as food production or timber. So these ecosystem services, such as biodiversity, carbon storage or water filtration, are all things that society will benefit from, but historically haven't been given any economic value. Natural capital markets look to place value on these so that pieces of land providing these benefits can be valued accordingly. So natural capital markets allow for a platform to exist where the sellers of ecosystem services, such as landowners, can meet buyers looking to offset their residual emissions, for example carbon. Within Scotland, we're lucky to have some of the most rigorous markets in the world due to the sophistication that we demand from the markets. This means that the carbon that you buy is real, it's verified, it's validated, and it's only being used to offset buyers' residual emissions. So the two most established, governmentally backed and robust markets in Scotland are the Woodland Carbon Code and the Peatland Carbon Code. The Woodland Carbon Code looks to quantify the carbon being sequestered from planting trees, while the Peatland Carbon Code looks to quantify the reduction in emissions from peatland restoration. Alongside your established markets, you also have some up-and-coming markets looking at other land management techniques, such as the Hedgerow Carbon Code, the Agroforestry Carbon Code, the Soil Carbon Code and even the Salt Marsh Carbon Code. However, these are still in developmental stages, but look like they will come into fruition sometime down the line. As well as the carbon markets, there also looks as if there will be some sort of biodiversity market in the future. So some things to consider when you're looking at natural capital markets, especially in Scotland. The established ones benefit from their rigour, but with that does require a certain level of work. With every project there needs to be some level of registration and verification to make sure everything you're doing is legal and additional. And by additional, it means that the works that you're planning wouldn't go ahead if it weren't for the natural capital markets. And finally, they need to be validated, where a third party will come in to check that what has been promised has been actually delivered. There are a range of other up-and-coming markets as well, and these can look attractive, especially for markets such as soil carbon. Soil's something everybody's got, so it's something everybody can improve, and the carbon that's being trapped in it through regenerative practice is worth something. It is important to be aware of different markets out there that are voluntary. These will differ in their methodologies and the robustness of these. So it's important to check the legal side of what you're signing up for and how your market deals with this level of risk. It is also important for landowners to consider their own supply chains. So with carbon, we are increasingly seeing industry looking at their own supply chains and seeing where they can inset. So this looks at the likes of landowners looking to see if they can reduce their emissions or sequester carbon elsewhere. Hi Mark, thanks for having us here at Craigengillan Estates today to talk about natural capital markets. You're involved in natural capital markets, so what ones are you involved in? How did you hear of them, and what was it that made you think it was right for here?
This particular place, Craigengillan, is really special. I think it's got a magic, and it's got a really fine balance of natural habitat and farmed land. The two markets that we're involved in are woodland carbon on a fairly large scale, with woods which we planted over the last 22 years, and much smaller project has been a recent peatland restoration project of just about 11 hectares. The benefits are partly financial. If you plant a new wood, particularly if it's a native wood, it'll be maybe 70 or 80 or even more years before you get any return. If you work under the woodland carbon scheme, you receive carbon units which you can sell, and the money that you receive from that can cover part or all of the costs that you'll have to bear as the trees are planted and cared for until they're ready for harvesting, which will be way beyond most people's lifetime.
Before entering the natural capital markets, what was the work that was required to claim carbon credits?
It was identifying the land suitable for planting trees that would fit in with the rest of what happens at Craigengillan, and in particular the landscape and the farm, and then to make the predictions of carbon storage over the next 100 years and to get those validated. Mm-hmm. Those were the essential first steps.
Mm-hmm. And I believe you've also got an area of peatland restoration that you've done as well. Can you talk a bit about what was involved prior, both the work side and what was required to claim carbon credits on that?
In this case, the works initially began by sampling the peat, measuring the depth of peat throughout Craigengillan, and then within the areas of deep peat, looking at those which have been modified by man and putting together a recipe to restore them to their original good state. Once we'd done that, once we'd drawn up the restoration proposals, the job was to find a good contractor to actually undertake the work, which we did. Found a very good contractor, and some of the restoration techniques really are a work of art. They were beautifully done.
Mm-hmm. With the woodland creation and the peatland restoration, obviously these have been funded through carbon markets, but have you seen any other biodiversity improvements, for example, alongside these habitats?
Yes, huge really. We were able to plant many of the new woods on areas which it turned out had once been ancient woodland, and the mycorrhiza that were associated with those ancient woodlands, which disappeared perhaps 200 years ago, acted with the newly planted trees to really boost the growth, and it showed that we were returning a habitat which had been lost, a habitat of trees and all the life that goes with an old woodland, bird life, insect life, flowering plants, gradually bringing back things which have been lost for 200 years or more.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's obviously biodiversity increase is something you want to promote on the estate and something quite passionate about. With future potential biodiversity markets being developed and potentially being an option for landowners in the future, do you think this is something that you would look to go into, be it biodiversity units?
Definitely, and for every reason in itself, just the joy of seeing the increased biodiversity by creating conditions where you can be paid for doing what is the right thing, shows once again that if you work with nature, nature works for you, and with that money you can justify more projects like woodland creation, which otherwise you might have to wait 80 or 90 years before you received any income from it.
So what would be your advice or top tips or just anything to consider for anybody, landowner, looking to enter a natural capital market?
Advice that I would give is go to the best advisor. So get involved yourself, do it the best you can, get the best advisors, and you'll enjoy it, and it should bring benefit to the place, to you, and for natural environment.
If you want any more information about natural capital markets, please refer to fas.scot on the biodiversity section.